So I'm going to be forwarding you, and I hope it's still available, the Folgers Theatre version of Macbeth that I would have shown you in class. They pair up with Teller from Penn and Teller, and they have sleight of hand and magic befitting witches in that. And I cannot do this Porter scene as well as the Folger Theatre did it. And I will try a little bit to give you some ambiance on what's going on. The Porter scene is the comic relief. We just had the murder. Afterwards, we're going to have the ramifications of the murder of Duncan. So here we've got a little bit of humor, and it acts as that palate cleanser. So the porter is the person who's opening the gate up, who would have, just like at a hotel, taken the luggage, but he would have been responsible for entrance of the visitors. And they've all been partying with the king. And so he is, he's drunk. He's in a pretty bad place here. Hungover, maybe, exhausted from the drink. So we also are going to have some bawdy humor here. We're going to have some dirty jokes, and it would have gotten the audience refreshed from the drama and waiting for more either tragedy or sadness or other catharsis, but here they're going to get to laugh. Here's a knocking indeed. If a man were porter of Hellgate, he should have old turning the key. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there in the name of Beelzebub? Now notice the knock, knock joke. And supposedly, and I don't think it's apocryphal, I think it probably is a true story, this is credited with being the first knock, knock joke. Knock, knock. Who's there in the name of Beelzebub? Here's a farmer that hanged himself in the expectation of plenty. Come in, time pleaser. Have napkins now about you. So these are all the different people who died and their expectations in life and why they're so tuned up that they end up in hell. Here you'll sweat for it. Knock, knock. Who's there in the other devil's name? Faith, here's an equivocator that could swear in both the scale against either scale, who committed treason enough for God's sake, yet could not equivocate to heaven. So equivocate, turning language around to be lies, yet seemingly to tell the truth. Think of someone who's kind of a really dastardly lawyer. These would be equivocators. But he couldn't equivocate to God, and so he ended up in hell. Come in, equivocator. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? Faith, here's an English tailor come hither for stealing out your French hose. Come in, tailor. Here you may roast your goose. Knock, knock. Never a quiet. What are you? For this place is too cold for hell. I'll devil porter it no further. I had thought to have let in some of all professions that go the primrose ways to the everlasting bonfire. More knocking. And on, I pray you. Remember the porter. His hand would have been out for a tip for having been woken up and answering the door. And so Macduff and Lennox come in. We're going to learn about Macduff here in this scene and in the scenes to come. And so far they're still friendly. Was it so late, friend, ere you went to bed, that you do lie so late? Faith, sir, we were carousing till the second cock, and drink, sir, is a great provoker of three things. What three things does drink especially provoke? Marry, sir, nose painting, sleep, and urine. So nose painting, when people who are drinkers, drunks, they would have very red noses over time as their blood vessels dilated, and it makes you drowsy, and of course you need to pee. Lechery, sir. And so lechery, wanting to be amorous, wanting to have sex, and so this is, again, just like Romeo and Juliet, these are going to be some penis jokes. Lechery, sir, it provokes and unprovokes. It provokes the desire, but it takes away the performance. So the audience would have been laughing already. Therefore, much drink may be said to be an equivocator with lechery. It makes him and it mars him. It sets him on and it takes him off. It persuades him and disheartens him. Makes him stand to and not stand to. So, great erection jokes would have made the entire audience laugh. In conclusion, equivocates him in sleep, and giving him the lie leaves him. I believe drink gave thee the lie last night. That it did, sir, in the very throat on me. But I requited him for his lie, and I think being too strong for him, though he took up my legs sometime, yet I made a shift to cast him. Is thy master stirring? And so we get rid of the porter there, and we now get on to bigger business after the audience has had a big laugh. Our knocking has awakened him. Here he comes. Good morrow, noble sir. Good morrow, both. Is the king stirring, worthy thane? Not yet. He did command me to call timely on him. I have almost slipped the hour. I'll bring you to him. I know this is a joyful trouble to you, but yet 'tis one. The labor we delight in physics pain. This is the door. I'll make so bold to call, for 'tis my limited service. So the king has asked Macduff, make sure you wake me up. He's probably got to get back into business. And so now they're just chewing the fat here while they're waiting for Macduff to wake up the king. Goes the king hence today? He does. He did appoint so. Now Lennox reports odd happenings. Again, the pathetic fallacy. Keep in mind that there's unnatural things that have happened, events that have happened through the night, and we'll go on to explain that later about why the unnatural events are so important. The night has been unruly. Where we lay our chimneys were blown down, and as they say, lamentings heard in the air, strange screams of death, and prophesying with accents terrible of dire combustion and confused events. New hatched to the woeful time, the obscure bird clamoured the livelong night. Some say the earth was feverish and did shake. 'Twas a rough night. My young remembrance cannot parallel a fellow to it. And so lots of wind, chimneys blown down, sounds of screaming in the air, birds that were clamoring and carrying on. It did seem to be a rough night meteorologically. And of course, we know that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth were out killing the king, and that was unnatural. And the importance of it equates with the unnatural events happening in the atmosphere. Now Macduff enters, and look at the exclamation marks, the screaming. Oh, horror, 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 tongue nor heart cannot conceive nor name thee. And they all turn around in shock, asking what the matter is. Confusion now hath made his masterpiece, most sacrilegious murder hath broke out the Lord's anointed temple and stole thence the life of the building. Now remember, they do think that the kings of the time are anointed straight from God, that he had his anointed temple broke open. What is it you say, the life? Mean you his majesty? Approach the chamber and destroy your sight with a new Gorgon. Love these allusions. Gorgon, Medusa was a Gorgon. What happened when you looked at her? And they're going to destroy their sight by this horrible vision in front of them. Do not bid me speak, see and then speak yourselves. Awake, awake, ring the alarm bell, murder, treason, Banquo and Donalbain, Malcolm, awake. Shake off this downy sleep, death's counterfeit, and look on death itself. Up, up, and see the great doom's image. Malcolm, Banquo, as from your graves, rise up and walk like sprites to countenance this horror. Ring the bell. And that alarm bell was ringing. People would have been running in different directions. A bit of a chaos. Lady Macbeth has to come in. She's a great actress. What's the business that such a hideous trumpet calls to parley the sleepers of the house? Speak, speak. Oh, gentle lady, 'tis not for you to hear what I can speak. The repetition in a woman's ear would murder as it fell. Oh, Banquo, Banquo, our royal master's murdered. And look at Lady Macbeth's reaction. She does play the part well. Oh, alas, what? In our house? Too cruel anywhere. Dear Duff, I prithee contradict thyself and say it is not so. Now everybody rushes in. Macbeth has to play the part also. The shock. Had I but died an hour before this chance, I had lived a blessed time. For from this instant there's nothing serious in mortality. All is but toys. Renown and grace is dead. The wine of life is drawn, and the mere lees is left this vault to brag of. Donalbain and Malcolm have now entered. Macbeth has to break the news to them. What is amiss? You are and do not know it. The spring, the head, the fountain of your blood is stopped. The very source of it is stopped. The head of the family, the head of their gene pool, the fountain of the blood, meaning their father. Your royal father's murdered, Macduff is a little plainer speaking. Oh, by whom? Those of his chamber, as it seemed, had done it. Their hands and faces were all badged with blood. So were their daggers, which unwiped we found upon their pillows. They stared and were distracted. No man's life was to be trusted with them. Now look what Macbeth did. Oh, yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them. So, why would he kill them? When they need them as witnesses, tell them what happened. Macduff is a little bit curious about this and surprised. Wherefore did you so? Now, see if you believe Macbeth here. See if it's logical about what his excuse is. Who could be wise, amazed, temperate, and furious, loyal, and neutral in a moment? No man. And so that makes sense. How can you be so vicious at this and yet temperate in your behavior, loyal to the king and yet neutral enough to find out what happened? The expedition of my violent love outrun the pause or reason. Here lay Duncan, his silver skin laced with his golden blood, and his gashed stabs look like a breach in nature for ruin's wasteful entrance. There, the murderers, steeped in the colors of their trade, their daggers unmannerly breached with gore. Who could refrain that had a heart to love, and in that heart courage to make his love known? So he couldn't help himself. It was all too much. He was too passionate. He loved the king too much. And Lady Macbeth, she starts a bit of a faint. Help me, Henso! Look to the lady! So Malcolm and Donalbain have to have a little conversation here. The brothers, left of a king who was murdered. If someone had it out for the king, who do you think might be the next target? Why do we hold our tongues that most may claim this argument for hours? What should be spoken here where our fate hid in an auger hole may rush and seize us? Let's away, our tears are not yet brewed, nor our strong sorrow upon the foot of motion. Look to the lady! And Lady Macbeth is carried out. And when we have our naked frailties hid, that suffer and exposure, let us meet and question this most bloody piece of work to know it further. Fears and scruples shake us. In the great hand of God I stand, and thence against the undivulged pretense I fight of treasonous malice. I think I skipped a page there, folks. Nope, I didn't. Good, that was still Banquo. And Macduff, and so do I. So all. Let's briefly put on manly readiness and meet in the hall together. Well contended, sir. So everybody in the hallway now have to put aside the chaos, the horrible emotions, the shock. Fear shakes them at the moment, but we have to put all that aside and we have to put on manly readiness and we have to get to the bottom of this. So all of them do exit, and then Malcolm and Donalbain are left to have some sort of plan to get out of there safely. What will you do? Let's not consort with them. To show an unfelt sorrow is an office which the false man does easy. And that's true. If you were so conniving as to kill a king, lying and looking sorrowful about it would come most naturally. So Malcolm's going to go to England. To Ireland, I, our separated fortune shall keep us both the safer. Where we are, there's daggers in men's smiles. The near in blood, the nearer bloody. So right here in front of us is someone who killed us, our father, our king. We could be next. There's daggers in their smiles, just like Lady Macbeth told Macbeth. You have to look like the flower, but be the serpent inside. You have to be two-faced, and there's people that are two-faced around us. This murderous shaft that's shot hath not yet lighted, and our safest way is to avoid the aim. So we can't be staying here and be a target. Therefore to horse, and let us not be dainty of leave-taking, but shift away. There's warrant in that theft which steals itself when there's no mercy left. So we can't be dainty in our leave-taking. We can't go say thank you for this day, and we have to get going. They just flee. But there's a bit of a problem with that. If people flee from a crime scene, what are other people going to think about them?